She was 84 years old. She lived alone in one of the most expensive, most surveilled, most security-conscious neighborhoods in all of Tucson, Arizona. And sometime in the dead of night, in the early minutes of February 1, 2026, she simply vanished. Her doorbell camera, the one device that should have recorded everything, went completely dark at 1:47 in the morning. No alarm was triggered. No neighbor heard a sound. No struggle was detected. She was there one moment and gone the next, as if the night itself had reached in and taken her. Her name is Nancy Guthrie. She is the 84-year-old mother of today's show host Savannah Guthrie. And as of this recording, she has been missing for 79 days. But tonight is different. Because tonight, for the first time in this investigation, we are not here to talk about what we do not know. We are here to tell you exactly what federal investigators already knew, before they ever knocked on a door 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. We are here to name the man who lived inside that house. We are here to walk you through the warrants, the surveillance, the DNA, and the silence from a sheriff who cleared an entire family by name, but said nothing comparable about this one man. His name is Luke Daly. He is 37 years old. He is a convicted felon. And he lived exactly 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's front door. Stay with me. Because by the time this is over, you will understand this case at a level that most professional journalists simply do not. Like this video if you want justice for Nancy. Subscribe to Cold Case Unearthed. Drop a comment. Are you following this case? Let us start from the beginning and build this the right way, the way investigators built it. Quietly. Methodically. Piece by piece. It has been 79 days since Nancy Guthrie vanished from her residence in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona. 79 days since her security camera system went dark. 79 days since her family last saw her face. 79 days since she failed to arrive at a church service she had never once missed in all her years of attending. The Catalina Foothills is not the kind of neighborhood where people disappear. Wide streets. Desert landscaping. Homes set far back from the road behind walls and gates and cameras. These are the neighborhoods where people move precisely because they believe nothing like this can happen. And yet it did. An 84-year-old woman was taken from her home in the middle of the night, and no one saw a thing. From the very first hours of this investigation, the Pima County Sheriff's Department understood that this was not a simple missing persons case. The manner of the disappearance, the camera going dark, the pre-dawn timing, the complete absence of any voluntary departure, pointed to something deliberate. Something organized. Something that required planning. The FBI was called in early. And when the FBI gets involved in a kidnapping investigation at this level, everything changes. The resources expand. The surveillance becomes federal. The legal architecture deepens. And the patience, the willingness to build a case quietly before making any move, becomes total. 4 weeks, investigators worked. They gathered doorbell footage. They canvassed neighbors. They processed the scene. They followed digital trails, financial records, cell phone data. And at some point during those weeks, a name emerged. A name attached to a specific address. A specific vehicle. A specific criminal history. 2 miles away. The time is 9:15 in the evening on a Friday night. The Catalina Foothills neighborhood is quiet in the way that expensive neighborhoods always are. No lights flashing. No sirens. No megaphones. Only federal agents, sheriff's deputies, and 2 active search warrants signed by a sitting federal judge. Those warrants authorized a tactical search of a home in the 6200 block of North Placida de Rollo, a house sitting just 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's front door, and simultaneously, the search of a motor vehicle connected to the same individual. Inside that house, a 37-year-old man and his 77-year-old mother. Here is where most coverage of this story completely fell apart. Because what happened next was not a random knock on a door. It was a legally engineered operation that had been building for days, and it was executed with surgical constitutional precision. Under current law in the United States, you cannot legally detain a person inside their own home during the execution of a search warrant without formally placing them under arrest. That is a bedrock Fourth Amendment protection. Law enforcement knew it. And so they designed a workaround that was entirely legal. They conducted a tactical traffic stop on Luke Daly in the parking lot of a nearby Culver's restaurant. That stop gave them the legal authority to detain him while federal agents simultaneously searched his residence. At the exact same moment Daly was stopped in that parking lot, his 77-year-old mother was being detained at the family home. Both were detained. Physical DNA samples were collected from both. Statements were given. Both were subsequently released without formal arrest. Meanwhile, back at the house, a forensic search that would take hours was already underway. Evidence was collected. And according to Sheriff Chris Nanos, that evidence is still being forensically processed. This was not a hunch. This was not a knock and talk. This was the result of a case that investigators had built slowly, carefully, and with enough conviction that a federal judge signed not one warrant, but two. A warrant for the house and a warrant for the vehicle. Judges do not sign kidnapping warrants based on suspicion alone. There is always a documented legal reason. So who exactly is Luke Daly? Everything that follows comes directly from verified public court records. These are not allegations. These are documented facts. Between the years of 2019 and 2020, Luke Daly served a year and a half in Arizona State Prison. His convictions during that period included solicitation of drugs, criminal damage, and unlawful flight from law enforcement. He was not someone with a minor brushing against the justice system. He was someone who ran from it. In 2022, he was arrested again. This time he was convicted on drug distribution charges, not simple possession, but sales. He was sentenced to 4 years of supervised probation. Then, in May of 2025, less than a year before Nancy Guthrie disappeared, Marana police arrested him in a Walmart parking lot. He was found in possession of fentanyl and an illegal firearm. His probation officer moved immediately to revoke his probation status. A judge reviewed the case and allowed him to remain in the community. That is a critical detail. Read it again slowly. A man convicted of drug distribution, already on supervised probation, found with fentanyl and an illegal gun, and a judge allowed him to remain free in the community he was living in. On the night of February 1, 2026, the night Nancy Guthrie was taken, Luke Daly was a convicted felon on supervised probation, recently arrested for fentanyl possession and illegal firearm possession, living in the Catalina Foothills neighborhood of Tucson, Arizona, approximately 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's front door. After the FBI executed those warrants, Daly's defense attorney, Chris Scalpi of Scalpi Law, released a formal public statement. That statement confirmed the warrants were real. It confirmed that both Daly and his mother were detained. And it explicitly denied any connection between Luke Daly and the disappearance of Nancy Guthrie. But notice what that statement does not explain. It does not explain why the FBI chose this specific man's home and this specific vehicle for 2 simultaneous search warrants in an active federal kidnapping investigation. It offers a denial. It offers no alternative explanation for the federal government's attention. And notice one more thing, Daly already had a criminal defense attorney on retainer before the FBI ever arrived at his door. Scalpi Law was already representing him in multiple ongoing Pima County criminal cases. That means when federal agents showed up, Daly was not scrambling to find legal help. He was already covered. His lawyer was already in place. That is not the profile of a man with nothing to worry about. That is the profile of a man who already had reason to keep an attorney close. If you are still watching at this point, drop a comment with "I'm still here." Let's see who is truly following this shocking story. Now we need to talk about the forensic evidence, because this is where the most widespread confusion about this case has taken root, and that confusion has led thousands of people to draw entirely wrong conclusions. A pair of black gloves was recovered approximately 2 miles from Nancy Guthrie's home. Both the FBI and the Pima County Sheriff's Office confirmed that male DNA was successfully extracted from those gloves. That DNA profile was uploaded to CODIS, the FBI's Combined DNA Index System, a national database containing genetic profiles from convicted criminals and crime scene evidence collected across the entire country. As of this recording, no confirmed CODIS match has been publicly announced. And here is where people stopped paying attention. Here is where the story actually becomes more interesting, not less. Because Luke Daly is a convicted felon, his personal DNA profile is almost certainly already stored in CODIS. If his DNA had directly matched the glove sample, investigators would very likely know by now. The absence of a formal arrest, in that very narrow and very specific sense, is significant. We are not going to pretend otherwise. But here is what CODIS does not do. CODIS does not match surveillance footage. It does not match digital trails, financial records, or cell phone data. It does not account for gloves that were worn correctly, because when gloves function as designed, the DNA deposited inside may be partial, degraded, or mixed with genetic material from multiple contributors. And the Pima County Sheriff's Office has already confirmed that the DNA recovered in this case came from more than one person. That makes forensic isolation a significant challenge. Sheriff Nanos himself stated it could take, and he was explicit about this, weeks, months, or possibly an entire year to complete. 5 separate labs across the country are currently working in parallel to isolate those distinct DNA profiles. 5 labs. Simultaneously. That is the scale of the forensic operation underway right now. And then there is a second forensic avenue that the public rarely fully understands. Investigative genetic genealogy. This is the same methodology that finally caught the Golden State Killer after decades of him committing crimes with total impunity. It does not require the suspect's own DNA to exist in any database. Instead, it works by matching partial DNA profiles to biological relatives, building a family tree backward from a recovered sample until investigators can identify a specific candidate. This process is slower than a direct Cody's query. But it is significantly more powerful. It has no ceiling. And the FBI recently secured a hair sample from inside the Guthrie residence. Forensic teams are currently performing advanced DNA analysis on that sample. Genetic genealogist C.C. Moore, one of the foremost experts in this field, has described this hair sample as a potentially decisive development for investigators. A lack of a confirmed Cody's match does not mean there is no suspect. That distinction is not a mere technicality. It is the difference between understanding this investigation and completely misreading it. Now consider one specific investigative decision, because it reveals something important about how law enforcement established their focus in this case. The FBI asked every resident within a 2-mile radius of the Guthrie home to submit their doorbell camera footage for review. Every resident. Every camera. Within 2 miles. Investigators do not define a search radius arbitrarily. That boundary was not chosen at random. It was established based on physical evidence already recovered from the scene, evidence that revealed the approximate distance between the point of abduction and the location where the suspect discarded items after taking Nancy Guthrie. The black gloves containing male DNA were found 2 miles from the home. That discovery is what prompted the formal request for camera footage from every resident within that same 2-mile corridor, including the resident at the 6200 block of North Placida de Rolio. Luke Daly. 3 distinct data points, the gloves, the address, the individual, all converging within the same geographic corridor. And then the warrants. And then the DNA collection. And then the ongoing forensic processing. Does living 2 miles from a crime scene prove guilt? No. The vast majority of the hundreds of residents within that radius have absolutely no connection to this kidnapping. The FBI sought footage from all of them. They were not accusing every neighbor. They were systematically gathering forensic intelligence. But Luke Daly is not simply a neighbor within a radius. He is the only named individual in this entire investigation subjected to targeted surveillance before any contact was made. He is the only person known to have been under law enforcement monitoring in the days before the warrants were served. He is the only named individual in the case whose home and vehicle were searched under judicially authorized warrants directly tied to an active federal kidnapping investigation. Geography alone does not equal guilt. But the FBI did not establish that 2-mile perimeter without a forensic reason. And Luke Daly did not end up at the center of that perimeter by coincidence. When reports first confirmed that a man had been detained and released in the Nancy Guthrie case, journalists asked the obvious question. Has he been cleared? Sheriff Chris Nanos did not say yes. When pressed directly on camera about whether Luke Daly was still considered a suspect, Nanos replied, "Does that mean he is no longer a suspect?" No. We will continue to do our work. We have evidence to process from the residents. Read that carefully. A sheriff leading a federally coordinated kidnapping investigation is telling reporters, on the record, on camera, that the search of the Daly home produced material that is still being actively analyzed. He is not speculating. He is not hedging. He is describing an ongoing forensic process directly connected to a specific named individual. Now compare that to how Nanos responded when online speculation began targeting members of the Guthrie family, including Thomas Zuniga. The sheriff took the extraordinary and highly unusual step of publicly and formally clearing every member of the Guthrie family by name. His exact words were, "The Guthrie family, including all siblings and spouses, has been cleared as possible suspects." To suggest otherwise is not only wrong, it is cruel. The entire Guthrie family, cleared. Explicitly. On camera. By name. Luke Daly, released. Evidence still being processed. No formal clearance statement. No public exoneration. Silence. Every word a law enforcement official chooses in an active federal investigation is deliberate. And every word they decline to say is equally deliberate. Prosecutors are listening. Defense attorneys are listening. Judges may eventually be listening. When the same sheriff who publicly cleared an entire family by name says nothing comparable about one specific individual on day 79 of an active kidnapping investigation, that silence is not an oversight. That silence is a position. Released and cleared are not the same legal statement. In this investigation, that difference means everything. Luke Daly is not the only individual who has surfaced in the orbit of this investigation. And when you view the confirmed events in the correct chronological sequence, something begins to come into focus. The night before the daily operation, February 12, law enforcement conducted a traffic stop and seized a gray Range Rover from the parking lot of a Culver's restaurant. Later that same night, a woman named Kayla No was arrested and booked into Pima County Jail. Records show she later refused to appear for a scheduled court hearing, and authorities ordered her transportation. She has not been formally charged in connection with the Nancy Guthrie investigation. Law enforcement has not publicly confirmed any direct forensic link between her arrest and this case. Then on February 13, 2 warrants were executed on Luke Daly's home and his vehicle. Daly was detained in the Culver's parking lot while his mother was detained at the family residence. Physical DNA samples were taken from both. Both were released without formal arrest. Earlier in the investigation, a man who identified himself as Carlos, later confirmed as Carlos Pelayo, was intercepted in Rio Rico, Arizona, approximately 30 minutes south of Tucson near the Mexican border. He was detained, interrogated, and released. Investigators subsequently confirmed he had no link to the case. Online theories have circulated attempting to connect Kayla No and Luke Daly through prior criminal records and a shared social network. Law enforcement has not confirmed any such connection. Cold Case Unearthed does not present unverified speculation as established fact. We deal in documented evidence, and nothing more. There is one final dimension of this investigation that demands its own moment of careful attention. Kidnappings for profit are rare crimes. Abductions involving ransom demands, cryptocurrency payment addresses, and pre-dawn precision targeting of a specific victim are rarer still. These crimes require planning. They require infrastructure. They require an organized network. They do not happen in isolation. They do not happen on impulse. And they intersect with criminal enterprises in ways that investigators understand very well. Tucson, Arizona sits approximately 60 miles from the Mexican border, positioned directly along one of the most active trafficking corridors in the United States. The FBI has already reached out to Mexican federal authorities in connection with this investigation. That contact does not confirm that Nancy Guthrie was transported across the international border. But it confirms that investigators believe the perpetrators may have international connections that law enforcement cannot and will not rule out. Recently, the celebrity news outlet TMZ received an anonymous written tip from someone claiming to have personally seen Nancy Guthrie alive in the Mexican state of Sonora, approximately 70 miles from the Tucson area. The note read, "I know what I saw 5 days ago. I was told to keep quiet. I know who he is." The writer referenced multiple individuals involved in the abduction, a primary actor and several accomplices, and claimed explicitly that Nancy was transported across the border into Mexico. Cold Case Unearthed is not vouching for this source. Anonymous tips are not evidence. But this letter represents the 4th document that has been forwarded to the FBI for forensic analysis in connection with this case. And the FBI did confirm they requested that Mexican federal authorities alert local police to be vigilant. That level of international law enforcement coordination does not happen because of one anonymous letter. That kind of coordination happens when investigators already have reason to believe the coordination is necessary. So let us end where we must, with the facts as they stand on day 79. An 84-year-old woman disappeared in the dead of night from one of the safest zip codes in Tucson, Arizona. Her doorbell camera went dark at 1:47 in the morning. She has not been seen or heard from since. 79 days later, federal investigators have executed 2 judicially authorized search warrants on the home and vehicle of a convicted felon living 2 miles from her front door. They have collected physical DNA samples from that individual and his mother. They are actively processing forensic evidence recovered from that residence. 5 separate labs are working on the DNA. A hair sample from inside the Guthrie home is undergoing advanced genetic analysis. And the sheriff leading this investigation has declined, on camera, to issue any statement clearing that individual. The investigation is ongoing. No arrests have been made. The evidence is still being processed. But do not mistake the absence of an arrest for the absence of a case. Investigators build cases quietly. They build them carefully. They build them with enough conviction to walk into a federal courthouse, present their evidence to a judge, and walk back out with 2 signed warrants, before they ever show their hand publicly. They already showed theirs on February 13th. Nancy Guthrie is still missing. Her family is still waiting. And Cold Case Unearthed will continue to follow every confirmed development in this investigation. When the evidence moves, we move with it. Until then, stay informed. Stay vigilant. This is Cold Case Unearthed. We dig where others stop. Subscribe to Cold Case Unearthed. We follow the evidence, not the rumors like this video, to help us reach more people who deserve to know the truth. Comment below. Do you think Luke Daly will be formally charged? What do you think investigators are holding back? Cold Case Unearthed. We dig where others stop.